All right. So one of the things when we're growing our business, we got to realize is, we see these clicks and these impressions and these purchases, and sometimes we miss the fact that these statistics are not just statistics. They're real people with real dreams, real hopes, real aspirations, and the better we can take care of them, the better our business is going to be long term. So I'm really excited to have with me here today someone who's an expert on making sure that we're taking good care of our customers on Amazon or whatever channel you're using to sell. Really excited to have with me Greg Reynolds, who's the CEO and founder of Zon Support. Greg, thanks for being here on Maximizing E-commerce today.
Kevin, it's taken us a while to get going with this. Well, with me getting my diary organized, but it's certainly great to be here at last.
Well, I have to say, so you're jet setting around the world. That's what has been kind of the challenge, is you've been off grid there for a while. And
yeah, well, it's kind of, I guess, running an e-com business, online business really does give you the opportunity to travel if you can actually, take the opportunity and make it happen. Perhaps it was a bit ambitious to be doing it over December and January, but I've got a pretty good team sitting there, so it kind of all came together. But I've been off the grid for a little bit on and off. So it's been great. Yeah, but now great to be back into it again, of course.
Gotcha. Now we met because in part of your travels, you were totally on the grid, but we met because you were actually in Fort Worth at Brand Accelerator Live. Zon Support was a sponsor and had a lot of great feedback. And it looks like you're having a lot of good conversations with folks, because I really think the topic of customer service is one of those things that people don't give enough value to.
No, they don't, or rather, everybody thinks they're an expert at customer service. And so they're just all going to do it themselves, basically. But then what you've got to realize is you need some structure and some formality, and you need to know what you're going to do in advance. You just can't wing it when you're on an e-com platform.
Right.
And I've seen some people shoot from the hip with replies to customer who's written in something which is overall pretty silly, but nonetheless they wrote it in. And if you don't reply professionally and in a problem-solving way, and indeed in a way to draw the customer to you, you're just going to land a low-star review, quite honestly.
Yeah. So this is going to be a good conversation here. So before we start getting into some of the tactics, which you're already setting the stage for that, let's talk a little bit about your background. How'd you get into the whole e-commerce world?
Oh, look, I fell into it in 2014. My partner and I were in the US and doing some different businesses. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine was, getting rolling on Amazon. He was saying, like, Greg, you need to get into this. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay, but I'm busy, yeah? And I was. We were doing business development for another company. And, a few times it was, look, it's really, this is happening and that's happening. And I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. And then he had some challenges with it, right? And I'm like, I'm glad I didn't get in. But then it's like anything. Next thing I knew, he was double the size and moving on. So finally, I did, we had a bit of a dabble. And Kevin, back then it was easy. I shouldn't say that, but it was easier
than
it was now, right? You could find a product, you could make a sexy box or something a little bit different about it, mm-hmm. And put it up on the platform. And if you needed reviews, there was review services. There were ways, I guess, to get that initial momentum going. And so we did through 14 and 15. We got the initial momentum going and things are churning on. But so we outsourced a lot of it because, we were still busy with the other business development work. And so we outsourced the customer service and a lot of that sort of stuff. And it was all going swimmingly well. And then some other competitors came into our niche we didn't particularly realize. Then our team in the Philippines, a few errors, and then a few more errors on replies, but some low-star reviews. And then before you knew it, suddenly sales were dropping. And so we got in a bit of a scramble mode. And I don't know what it was with the VAs we were using. We'd used them for a long time. Maybe they got complacent, or maybe the customers were being more picky about questions, but they just weren't responding, or it wasn't right. Okay, they were very template based. So ultimately, we just we grabbed it all back and built back with the business, finding some local people. A woman who just retired down the road, taken early retirement. She's bored out of her brain, and was talking to her, in the street. And so she came on, very systems focused, as am I, and so started to get things, structured and rolling right. And we steadily built back, but not to the volume that we were before. And I don't know whether that was because we still had that bunch of low stars, right? So we were down in the early fours by then for stars, or whether it was other competitors that come in. The whole landscape had changed. So we brought in more products and still got things going. And then a chance conversation with a pretty big seller who was facing some scaling issues led us to say, well, look, we'd let Marianne sort of help out on his account as well. And then she needed some holidays, so we found somebody else. And so that covered. And then next thing he knew, he had somebody else and said, well, look, could you look after them as well? And so through 2017, we were just getting new clients, if you like, kind of by word of mouth and fairly unstructured. And then a conversation, and somebody said to me, you realise there's actually a business here, don't you? And I thought about it, and sometimes you're unconsciously aware of stuff. Right. And I realised there was. So we looked at it hard. We got structured. We built a brand, put up a website, and got serious about it. And so 2017 was pretty much beta, where we tried a lot of stuff on a lot of people that we knew. And then into 2018, we really commercialised it and started attracting people that we didn't know, if that made sense. Yeah.
Great. So, okay. So you've developed now this business where you're handling customer service essentially, and the things that come up in, someone's e-commerce business.
Yeah.
So what are the general, what I heard there was talk about systems and structure. So Can you walk through a little bit for the listeners who are saying, I don't know that I have all that much structure, or maybe they send out a couple of, emails that ask for reviews, but beyond that, maybe they don't have a lot of structure. So what are some things someone should put in place to have a structured customer service response? And then we can go down the rabbit hole that takes us down.
Yeah, sure. Well, everybody talks about standard operating procedures, right? SOPs. And that gives anybody brain fade. And what I say is, all it is, when this happens, do that. Okay, when this happens, do that. So you want to sit down with a blank sheet of paper, and you basically want to think about all the things that can go wrong with your customer relationship when they buy your product. It didn't arrive. It arrived broken. Okay, it was the wrong color, the wrong size, the wrong shape. And just go through. Take those headings and decide, if a customer was to write in and say, it didn't arrive, what would I say back? And basically, as we all know, Amazon takes responsibility for that. But you just don't want to push them straight back to Amazon, do you? Right? Our customer, although if anybody from Amazon's watching this, they won't appreciate it, because Amazon assert that the customers are their customers. So there's this kind of imbalance that sits in here, friction. And so basically what I say is, the first thing to do is to work out all the things that could go wrong, and then work out what would your response be, how could you then put it right. And then you've got your standard template. And then always when you're talking to a customer, you'll personalize it at the top. Thanks for writing in. I'm sorry for this or that or the other. Then you'll say what you're going to say, because you already know how you're going to fix that problem. And then you close it quite personally. Be sure to reach out to me again if there's a problem, or let me know if your replacement arrives, or something else. So people feel they're actually dealing with a real person and not a bot. And not somebody who's just writing templates, because we've been down that road, and the templates work, and when they don't work, it just turns to custard. Yeah. So that's what I mean about the system. So what we're doing with clients is working on them, understanding their brand, understanding their products. We get them to tell us all the good things about their products, the not so good, the hiccups they've got with it. Maybe they've got a quality issue and they're selling through. So we understand everything about it. Then we'll write out all these base templates so we then know what to do when a situation arrives. And for your listeners who are DIYers, and there are many of them, it's a matter of thinking in advance what you'll do. So when it happens, there's no emotion. Because as soon as you let emotion come into it, you know, an email with anger, you know, it happens. There's a low star review and you're like, how could you say that about this product that I've spent all that time and effort and money, right? Getting ready sort of thing. And it's a defense. And people who I've seen it, they write a defensive reply to a review. And then somebody at their other end says, oh, and I'll go one up on that. And then they reply on the review. And that's just a disaster because then Amazon's algorithm is like, oh, this must be of interest. Next thing you know, that low star review with your kind of off the cuff comment and their reply seems to get pinned to the top of your reviews, and you just can't get shut of it because Amazon has seen that this is of interest.
Right.
So
and then other people say it's helpful, which bumps it up.
I know. And in the old days, we could vote those down, right?
Right.
Yeah, you could then vote a comment as unhelpful or whatever. But what I'm trying to say to you is everything you do, if you think about it clearly in advance, then when the situation arises, you're more calm and measured to handle the situation, and importantly, do it on a personal level.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we as people want to feel like our situations are taken care of. I'll use a personal situation. So yesterday we took my wife's car into the mechanic because the brake pads were worn basically. And they're like, oh, you also need to replace this axle joint or something. I don't know anything about cars. I'm probably poorly explaining it here, but we started noticing last night this kind of petroleum-ish smell, and then we get out and there's like this burnt smell right next to the tire where they replaced the axle. So we took it in this morning. We're like, hey, what's going on? A little bit concerned. And then turns out somehow when they were replacing the axle, they accidentally tore this O-ring that was leaking transmission fluid, and that's what we smelled. So you know, it was one of those things where it was like, you know, they just took responsibility. It wasn't like they were trying to pin any of it on us or, well, you know, whatever. It was like, we'll just handle it. Cause that's actually what we want to hear, you know, and that's right. So exactly. So the person watching this or listening can just say, okay, what do I want to hear when a situation comes up? And most of the time it's acknowledgement of the situation and I'll fix it.
Yes.
Some variation of that.
That's right. But importantly,
what exactly happened usually doesn't matter.
Yeah, that you then own the problem, right?
Exactly.
And that's what it is in an e-com business. And I read some stats somewhere that are quite alarming about you know, the percentage of real returns that go back in an e-com business versus anywhere else. Because it's a bit different, isn't it, when you have to go back to a Macy's counter and take back the shirt that your partner said, no, that's your 16th blue shirt and you're not wearing another blue shirt, right?
Blue shirts are pretty good, I have to say.
Yeah, well, you're close to that too, yeah. So it's kind of different, but then you're dealing with a person. And so then when you go back with that belt or you know, woman's item or whatever it is,
right?
You kind of already know what you're going to say nicely because you want to get the return. So just think of that in the e-com world. Sometimes people are saying stuff and it's nothing to do with the product. It's because they want to make sure they get the return. Because a lot of customers still aren't sure if Amazon will automatically accept a return or if you have to say something a bit niggly about the product. Yeah, so you just have to take customers on face value, but the core is to understand they don't want it. And so you want to make it real easy for them to give it back or for you to take it back and for them not to have any issues at all. And that's what I'm talking about, yeah? As soon as they want to give it back, find an easy way or an easy mechanism for them to do it without losing face, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I remember when I worked at Walt Disney World, I was a restaurant manager, and I'm going to date myself. So we would have these alpha pagers, like a pager where we could send messages. It's like one-way text messages before there were text messages.
Yeah.
And we used to get all worked up with people that thought were trying to scam. And so,
Yeah.
like, somebody would say, "Oh, someone threw away my food," or something like that. And
Yeah.
then, like, we'd go around like texting each other, like, "Oh, there's these scammers," and describe them and all this.
Yeah.
And people get all worked up about it. And, like,
Yeah.
like, we're looking around trying to see the person we saw described, and somebody higher up was like, "Here's the deal: there are going to be people that are going to scam us,
Yeah.
but most people have a legitimate issue, or at least is legitimate to them.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
focus on the people who you can help
Yeah.
and not the people that are trying to scam you,
Yeah.
like, we're going to go farther." So
Yes.
it's like that, like, worry sometimes we have, like, oh, someone's going to get one over on us. It's
I know.
part of
Yeah.
being in business at some
Yeah.
point, but
And
that's such a small percentage, and we
it
can do more to
is.
create
But
lifetime customers.
everybody focuses on that little percentage, on that little
Right.
niggly thing. I don't know why. People just get so defensive about it. And
Yeah.
it's kind of across the board. And how I try to put it into context with people is this, okay? So somebody makes a complaint or wants to sends a product back, or there's some issue that you need to respond to. And then I say, well, hang on, before we talk about that, let me ask you this. If I told you I had about 150 people in a secret database somewhere, and I can actually organize for them to give you a 5-star review, how much would you pay me? And they're like, they were talking about this, and now suddenly they're talking about reviews. And, typically it's, the stingy ones are 20 or 25 bucks. The generous ones would pay me 80 bucks. So let's say if it was only $40, let's say if it was $30 on average that people would pay me to get my secret database of people to start dropping them 5-star reviews. And I said, okay, so you'd pay me 30 bucks. And they say, yeah, I would. Why are we talking about this? But why would you do that in your business? Well, won't that get you into trouble? I said, no, you've got a potential 5-star review right now. It's this person who's niggled and making a complaint. Now, I can give you odds on that they'll probably drop you a low-star review if you don't do something.
Right.
So why don't you just take the high ground and do something awesome? Why don't you say, hey, okay, it wasn't the right fit, or the color, or the size, you didn't like it. Why don't you say, okay, how about I send you a replacement? What's your cost of goods? 15, 18, 20, 25 bucks, 30 bucks. So you're net equal. You'd be amazed at the number of customers we have who then get a 5-star review, even when their customers got a replacement, it still wasn't that good, wasn't quite what they wanted. And the review's all about the customer service was great, they responded, they helped me out, and I've never had such attention, from Amazon, because I all think it's Amazon, before.
Right.
Okay? So that's what I say to people. As soon as there's a problem, you've just got to light up your face with a big smile, because this is just a 5-star review opportunity that's been put on your plate. And you may just win one. And I'm very certain you're not going to get the low star, but you just might win the high star. And if you go into all these situations with that smile on your face and looking for that high 5 moment,
right,
it makes a big difference, believe me.
I love that analogy of the database of 5-star reviews, because I've had people leave reviews and there were 5-star reviews and mentioned customer service because they had a problem. But to your point, they also, if I didn't take care of them, they would have been a 1-star review most likely. Because people tend to leave reviews with some sort of strong emotion, and the strongest emotion is often the most negative one.
Exactly.
So you can turn that strong emotion in your favor by taking good care of them. So that's such a good way of looking at it. I love that.
And so psychologically, that just flips a different switch within your brain as to how you manage the customer situation. And so that's part of the ethic. I mean, we're all native English speakers, and that's our difference as well. I admire people in the Philippines and India and elsewhere in these low economic areas, and the only English training they've got basically is what they've learned at school or somewhere. But their cultural awareness and everything else just isn't there. They don't get it. And also they're a step afraid of a customer. They're not sure what to do, right? So when you're dealing with Americanos, as I call you guys, it's the same people dealing with the same people. So we know when there's been bad weather on the east, right? We know it's school holidays. We know what's going on, and so that gets built into some of the communication. Yeah. Excuse me.
No, that's okay. So yeah, I see what you're saying, that the more we can have a templated answer. Now, I do have a Filipino virtual assistant who's done a very good job with customer service stuff, but not necessarily everyone has the same results.
Yeah.
So either way, the more you can systematize it, and so even if it's someone who is an English teacher in the United States, you want them to at least know like kind of what your brand is, what your expectations are, and
exactly.
things of that nature.
Yeah.
So let's start walking down the road of what do you look for when you're creating these templates?
Okay, well, we start off with all the basics. We make a list of the basics, some of which I mentioned. It didn't arrive, it was broken, right? Or they want it replaced, or there's something wrong with the product. And each of them has a slightly different twist to how you might fix it in the middle, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because also underlying all of this is our strategy for 90% of our clients, excuse me, is we want to keep the return with the customer. We don't want it to come back into Amazon. Because fundamentally, Amazon, in a nanosecond, will decide whether to put it in stock or whether to put it as not fulfillable. 9 times out of 10, it'll go into stock. Mm-hmm. And if it is faulty, it'll go back out to another customer. So what we're trying to do in that SOP, in that template, is maneuver the customer, if we possibly can, to keep the product, and we'll send a replacement. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the underlying what sits in there. And so to that end, you can go into your Seller Central account, and then you can go into the notification section, and where it talks about being notified about returns, Amazon, believe it or not, sends you an email as soon as somebody's requested a return. And if you're fast enough and smart enough, and you have that email directed to your most important email, not the one that all the junk and Amazon stuff goes to, but the first one that's most important. If you get an email from Amazon which says, Kevin just requested this return, and he is, it's coming back, and you get straight back out to that customer before they've gone down to drop it off, and say, hey, Amazon just told us you wanted to return the product. So sorry, something was wrong with it. Please hold on to it. Don't turn it back. Don't return it. Just let me know what was wrong. Maybe I can fix it for you. Okay?
Okay.
So this is all immediate action, and this is all trying to be very front-footed with everything. And also what it is having that single-minded focus. So when those emails drop in, you're actually there to fix it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So we work through all those scenarios, and then we agree with the client what action will be taken. Or if you're listeners, then you actually make a crystal clear decision, and don't you dare move from it. If you say, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do that, then make very sure that you do that. Because when you are cool and calm and collected, you made a good business decision. But when it all gets ugly, rely on what you decided when you're cool and calm, not when you're really annoyed about something.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, because sometimes our emotions get the best of us. I like your proactive approach of finding out the returns before they're returned, because I think most of us just wait until a customer emails us and then we respond. But in this case, you're reaching out to them to try to fix the situation. So that's going to prevent more 1-star reviews, as well as, like we talked about, potentially turn some of those around into 5-star reviews.
Because what happens here is then the customer comes back to you and says, oh, sorry, oops, I've already returned it, right? So, but the door's open, right? We've got inbound communication. There's another high five, right? Now you're engaging with somebody who sent your product back, okay, which is very much better than having no engagement with them at all. And so you bat straight back and say, okay, that's fine, but tell us what was wrong.
Right.
And then they'll tell you what was wrong. And believe me, it will likely not match what is on the return report that you run 30 days later when it says what the customer said when they returned the product. So number one, you get direct insight into something perhaps that's not quite right with your product, rather than when they went and said, did not match description or something like that, which gets you into so much trouble with Amazon, doesn't it?
Right.
But they
well,
say
and you can update your description if you start getting the same feedback.
Exactly. And what you can do is you can build into your product or whatever else you're doing some real intel from the customer. And so they've come back to you. So what's that? You can click the message, no response required, if you've got rocks in your head. Or what would you do? You just back another reply to the customer, wouldn't you? Say, hey, look, thank you very much for that. And depending on what they've said, for this, for that, for the other, or you direct them somewhere, but you just close it off nicely. They bought the product and they returned the product. They can still leave a review, Kevin.
Right.
And they do.
Yeah, they're probably going to leave a review because here's the thing. Someone that has a problem wants someone to hear.
Exactly.
And so if you can be the one to hear, empathize, and then you can turn it around. So, all right. So to kind of close this out, what other tips would you have for someone to have great customer service in this situation where we're not dealing face to face with the customer?
I don't think there's a lot more other than making sure it's personalized in terms of, like, on your low star reviews. You don't want to make it look too formal. I'm a big fan of saying, hi, Kevin, or because most people don't put their real name, hi, Road Warrior or something. If they've got a silly Amazon name, we use it. Hi, Road Warrior. Okay. Thanks for your review. Acknowledge. Thank you is the most powerful word you can use on the planet. And so why don't people just start every conversation off with thank you? You actually get the attention of the person on the other side. Right?
In a positive light, yeah.
Yes, And so you're saying, look, thanks for your review. I appreciate the point you raised, or I'm sorry that this and that happened, so they know it's personalised. But again, that's done with a large coffee when you're slightly chilled, not when you're racing out the door, or you're running another job, or you've got kids screaming around the house, right? The car's smelling after it was in the brake shop, or something else going on, and you're distracted because the customer needs your 100% focus at that given point in time if you're going to have any hope of winning them into a two-way conversation. Because if you can't get another communication coming back to you, then it's in the lap of the gods.
Right, exactly. Then now you're just kind of hoping that they message you, as opposed to, like, if you start the conversation on the right foot and seem helpful and friendly, then they're more likely to, because you're approaching.
So while we're talking about that, let's touch on seller feedback. Oftentimes people leave seller feedback and they leave a product review and seller feedback. And it's like when they leave a really bad product review and seller feedback and 1 star, you're like, I just won. I can go back to Amazon and say, this doesn't hit your rules. This is 100% product review. It doesn't belong in feedback. Please remove it. And Amazon does, because seller feedback is only about performance as a seller. But that's not where the win is. The win is that the order ID is sitting there, so you know who they are.
That's a good point, because you don't know in product feedback or product reviews, but you do in seller feedback.
So wham, straight back out to that customer. And depending on what they've written, we'll even ship the replacement product then and there and reply and say, hey, saw your seller feedback, so sorry that this or that or the other was wrong. I've shipped you a replacement product already. Please let me know that it arrives safely. Now,
Gotcha. Now you opened up the conversation.
50% of the time, at best, they will come back to you and say, yes, it arrived. Sometimes they come back to you and say, no, 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 don't ship it because it was actually this or that or the other.
Mm.
And you've already shipped it. So what?
Right. Worst case scenario, you made them happy.
It's over delivery.
Right.
Over delivery. And the other trick that we do in this, when we know it's a low star review that we can get removed by Amazon, we let it sit there. We deal with the customer because we're dead scared for them to go back and see that their review is gone, because then they might get angry. Right? So we try to fix the situation, and we let it sit there for a while, okay? And then depending on the scenario, sometimes we look, because we're checking twice a day, seller feedback, it's disappeared because somebody's gone in there and just removed it, okay? Or if not, and for one reason or another, then we will remove it because we don't want it on our seller feedback, because we want our seller stats as high as possible. But again, it's just when you've got the time and focus and all you've got to do is focus on your customer service, there's a lot of little things that you learn and a lot of little things you can do, which frankly aren't a good use of your time. You're better off PPC, social media, sourcing products, looking what your competitors are doing in your niche and enhancing your product, than getting buried down this rabbit hole that we're halfway down already, okay, about trying to deal with the customers, which is, for many Amazon sellers, the least of their problem, right? The least of their problem.
All right. So this has been a fun conversation here, Greg. So for anyone that's listening or watching and is like, I'd like to hear a little bit more about what Greg has to say about customer service, or just learn more about Zon support, or whatever the case is, where would they go to do that?
Well, the easiest thing to do is just drop past our website, zonsupport.com. Have a look at that. There's a link there you can click on for a newsletter. We don't write often, but when little things happen which impact customer service and that side of things, that kind of spurs us into action, because that really we really are the backroom team, if you know what I mean. There's others far better than me on PPC and all those other marvelous things.
Gotcha. So you are definitely specializing in the customer service aspect.
Yeah,
so
we are, and now we've got clients who've gone on to Shopify, and so we're looking after Shopify. We've got clients on ClickFunnels, all coming through the same kind of process, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha.
So that customer service is our wheelhouse, 100%.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on board and sharing a lot of what you've learned about customer service, because I really do think it's oftentimes something we don't put enough attention on. But when we think about customer service and how it impacts our business, and like we said, it could prevent those 1 stars from being 1 stars and turn them around to a possible 5-star.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks, Kevin. Great to be here.
Yeah, appreciate having you on. Take care.
Okay. Cheers. Bye.